right. It's Tuesday at high noon here in Dallas, so it's time for the SMU Sports Management Program to present the Snodgrass Partners Webinar Tuesday. Welcome to the show. My name is Peter Davis. I am a professor in the SMU Sport Management Master's Program, and I welcome you to one tentacle of our extended virtual campus for the summer. It's been a lot of fun to learn about the world of webinars this summer. It's something new for me, so I guess it just goes to show that you can teach an old dog new tricks, although I think everybody is learning it. But my age is creeping up, so I was pleased to know that I could learn something so technology driven. And I was even thinking about bringing some more sponsors in, because the way things are moving with fall sports right now, I figured Xanax might be a slam dunk for everybody. Unfortunately, I think they know they have a captive audience known as Planet Earth right now. If sports keep disappearing, I think people are going to be seeking out Xanax and they aren't going to need any promotional support to drive their sales. But I digress. Well, no, I won't. It is depressing. My son's about to turn 10, so this was going to be the fall where we really got out to see some historic and just fun campus environments. And now that has changed, and now we're just hoping to see some empty stadium games on television. I mean, I hope that's the worst case scenario. But obviously this is a much larger concern to athletic departments, sports agencies, pro leagues, universities, sponsors, you name it. This is bigger than just, hey, I wish I had something to do this weekend, something fun to do this weekend. Because this is bottom line business we're talking about, whether media, sponsor, fan, all of those revenue pieces are up in the air right now. And if they're not already, cost containment and revenue generation are going to be the headlines on campuses from coast to coast, and certainly probably well beyond that. And as properties dig deeper into both of those options, cost containment and revenue generation, Snodgrass Partners stands by to help with such needs, not only individually, but with the allied partner network that they've developed of experts, consultants, professionals out there. There's really nothing too small and certainly nothing too large for Snodgrass Partners and their team of allied partners to help you with. So you can see more about that at snodgrasspartners.com as you are reviewing today's presentation or any of the other 8 presentations we've done this summer. Those are all recorded on there, and you can check into those and see what's been going on if you've missed any, or share with your colleagues. So we're lucky enough to have one of those allied partners, which is Athlete Network, with us today to shed some light on great resources for fundraising and revenue generation. So Brett Fuller is the Vice President of Partnerships at Athlete Network. And anyone returning to the series knows that I love to have former student athletes and coaches on. I just feel like I get more out of that for whatever reason. And so that should come as no surprise that Brett is going to follow suit. He is a former track athlete at the University of Kansas, where he also went on to work. And beyond that, he's made sports marketing his world for the last, we'll say more than 25 years, because that sounds better. As my age goes up, that sounds better. More than 25 sounds better than almost 30 years of experience. But that is indeed what he has and what he's bringing to us. So he's worked on campus, he's worked in executive boardrooms and everywhere in between. He's got good experiences with great properties, LSU, Clemson, NASCAR, the NFL, USOC, but he's also got corporate experience with the likes of Sprint and Delaware North and other people that are really important to the sports industry, sports marketing industry in particular. And he's also worked with some very little known athletes like Drew Brees and Tiger Woods and the Williams sisters, little people you may not be familiar with, but you should look them up. They're pretty fascinating people. But with such breadth and depth that he does have, Brett's ready to share as much as he can today. And to do that, we want to encourage you to provide questions and answers throughout the conversation today. So somewhere you have a little Q&A button, and we would encourage you to use that. I'll be monitoring that as we go. So take a look out there and see what you could find and see what questions you have for him. and we'll go from there. So with that, Brett, I'd like to say welcome to you, and also have you, if you would, to start things here today, just tell us a little bit about anything I missed in your personal background, as well as why Athlete Network has been such a great fit for you for the last few years.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter, and appreciate being a part of the webinar series, speaker series this week. Yeah, I appreciate it. I like to prefer the term experienced rather than old, as synonymous as that may be. But yeah.
So my best friend turns 49 today, and that gives you an indication where I'm sitting very close to him. So age is definitely on my shoulders today.
We're experienced.
Good.
We're very experienced.
Yes.
Yeah, so the reason why I'm excited to be at Athlete Network for the last 2 or 3 years is we have now more timely than ever with COVID and what's going on, makes us look a little bit like we're ahead of the curve, but a little bit of luck. But the whole premise behind what I do at Athlete Network, and we're a company that's been around 14 or 15 years, we launched a software about 2 or 3 years ago that helps.
That's kind of when you got involved, right? When the software.
Yeah, that's right. They brought me on board at the launch of the software to oversee this part of the company. Our goal with our Unite software is that we license it to organizations, teams, schools, different entities, all in and around the athletics world. Some pro, some collegiate, things like that. But with the goal of engaging a segment or a niche audience. One of the challenges that has always existed, no matter if you're the U.S. Olympic Committee or if you're the University of Kansas, or in the case of a lot of professional sports teams, how are we going to engage with former athletes? How are we going to keep relationships? How are we going to nurture those relationships? And there may be a different result that's the goal. Maybe it's just to keep them part of the family. Maybe it's to fundraise. Maybe it's to generate, mentor-mentee relationships, whatever the case may be. The common thread amongst all of our partners and the purpose of our software is to provide a user-friendly platform that allows an organization, company, school to engage with a segment of users, in this case, alumni of some definition, but it's all around athletics. We launched with the U.S. Olympic Committee because all the NGBs had a challenge of providing a home or a centralized hub of services in one easy to find location, whether you're a part of, Team USA, track and field, or swimming, or volleyball, or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
And we work with schools and associations like the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. You mentioned some of our partners like Clemson, but we're really proud to have, 60, 65 partners on board using our software that's customized and branded and unique to each one of our partners. But the end goal is to help people engage with an audience of their alumni.
Well, that's really cool. And as you think about alumni, obviously you and I, just through our conversations and our affiliations over the last number of months, we understand the expertise that Athlete Network has with, as we're defining them, alumni. And as you say, it could be defined however you want them to, or a group of niche people, but provide a little more context about maybe the start of Athlete Network and what those years have really provided, that it's not just, alumni isn't just a word to you guys. Alumni is at the center of what you do.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. We have our own focus group in here. Almost everybody at Athlete Network is a former college athlete, D1, NAI, D3, Power 5, whatever the case may be. Our origins were to fill a niche a long time ago that was a lot of corporate America, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies like to hire former college athletes in the workplace. Everybody knows Northwestern Mutual or Enterprise, things like that. The athletes, however far you're involved with artificial intelligence, AI, or just anecdotal experience, a great success story with companies like Enterprise hiring athletes, company partners like ours of Stryker that just like to hire athletes. They're coachable, time management, very competitive,
absolutely,
like to lose. And that applies to a lot of different career fields. So many years ago, when our founder Chris Smith started the company, it was as simple as we want to connect athletes with employers who want them and employers to athletes and vice versa. We had an agnostic site at athletenetwork.com for free. Current and former college athletes could sign up, have access to the career pages and the job board. Where we pivoted and evolved a few years ago is we are more in a virtual world now, obviously with COVID more than ever. We need to digitally engage, but we need to provide services beyond careers. How can we engage in a meaningful way 365 days a year? So we evolved as a company from career services, career development, seminars, jobs, employer partners, to a more robust platform that has a wider array of services, mentoring program, athlete directories, but it's all niche around the partner. So it's branded uniquely. And it also serves as a pretty nice database and analytics of not only where do people work, live, and play, but how are they engaging with us? There's just a higher level of expectation now in our world of delivering services when I want them, how I want them, instantaneously. I don't want to wait 6 months to get a marketing campaign out. I want to post it today and I want to deliver it tomorrow.
Right.
So there's a higher expectation on both sides of the fence that, the alma mater and the alumni or the team or the association. And so that's where we wanted to provide a wider array of services based upon what we heard from athletic departments, what we heard from associations and industries of we have to do a better job of engaging, particularly if we ever aspire to ask somebody for anything. And if you don't have a good relationship with somebody, it's hard to ask them. I don't care if it's your neighbor and you need to borrow a shovel. If you don't have a relationship, it's hard to ask. And if budgets are being cut, no matter where you sit and what chair, you better have good relationships with your constituents and your user groups, or it's going to be a hard road now with budget and revenue issues.
I like that growth too. What it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as Athlete Network started, it was listening to athletic departments saying, we know how to recruit them in, but then you had NCAA new rules, you had APR and graduation rates and all those sorts of things that started to come into play. So athletic departments need to start paying attention to that. But then at some point, they've got to send their student athletes off to the next world, and that's kind of where his focus is. Like, okay, we've got you doing all this, we can help you, but now everybody's got that in the academic side. But so how are we going to help you? And it probably helped in the recruiting side to say, we're not just here for you for 4 years. We're going to help you take that next step and find a job. But then I suspect, beyond that, the schools and universities at some point said, okay, well, we're sending them off, but then they just kind of disappear. And that's the funny thing about analytics and the data you were just talking about, is you need time to collect that stuff. And it's not just there if and when you need it. So you guys have been developing that channel, we'll just call it that channel of information. And I bet there were probably times you were collecting data you didn't even recognize the value that would come in the future. But you really expanded beyond just let us push you into your career to, hey, let's keep talking. There might be something else to talk about beyond just your next job.
Yeah, there's no doubt data is king. And if you have 2 million athletes in your system and you have survey capabilities and feedback capabilities and partners willing to share, we have a lot of access to data. But to your earlier point, one of the things that's evolved is every association has anything to do with sports, whether a professional sports team like our Chiefs or a college or association. Everybody is really good at throwing money at them during the experience while they're on campus or while we play for that professional sports team. We're willing to spend millions of dollars on salaries, facilities, services. Where most institutions, associations, or schools fall short is extending that goodwill the next 50 years. Why in the world would we invest in something for 4 or 5 years and then cast it aside when we can so easily extend that goodwill without a lot of effort? So that is one of the things that we want to help folks do, is extend that goodwill. Maybe it's data-driven analytics that help us, but we need to sustain those relationships, keep them involved, keep them a part of the family, whatever you define family as. You know, it could be a reunion, it could be a, you know, homecoming for a college, it could be a Hall of Fame ceremony Hall of Fame ceremony. It could be the U.S. Olympic Committee. They're great at training Team USA athletes. What do we do with them the day after those athletes retire? We want to keep them a part of the USOC family.
Sure.
Maybe our services pivot or our content pivot. So that's really the goal of what we do with our Unite software is no matter what hat you wear, we want to enable you to extend those services and nurture those relationships so you can define what giving is later. It may be, hey, you know, we need to find people to hire athletes, or we need job shadowing for a professional sports team in the off season, or Team USA athletes may need mentor-mentee relationships. So we don't know what the definition of giving because every partner is different. What we do know is that people need to do a better job using technology in a virtual world to digitally engage and sustain and extend that goodwill.
Probably smooth things a little bit to make sure, so you're delivering it in a not hammer over the head type of way. But I would assume that athletes we'll talk about student athletes on campus for a minute, but given what they've gone through and probably the spirit that they have within them for their school, talk to me about how they give back, versus maybe the general contingency of general students.
So it's really interesting because this is a niche audience of people that were part of a family. They had an affiliation. They had a lot of warm and fuzzies, minus the one or two people who may complain about PT. But in general, you've got a captive audience. They're not commuters. They're not living, they're not off campus. So you have a unique audience of people that when they were on campus were very, very tight-knit, good memories, wins and losses and bonding. And, for a lot of people, this is their family.
Sure.
So it's a super opportunity while they're on campus. Now more than ever, and I know it's kind of the elephant in the room with COVID and, living in some ways in a vacuum if you're trying to stay away from other people and, whatever. You want to connect with family. You want to have those relationships, just like your cousins, your friends, your college roommate. Yeah. Your team is your family. So one of the things that happened is, virtual reunions, a lot of Zoom calls like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing the kind of the reinvestment of those relationships or wanting to kind of regress back to those days to my family that I used to hang out with in college. And so being able to facilitate those relationships and organic networking and providing tools and opportunities for those people to, I guess, reconnect, reunite, just like you and me. I'm sure we've connected people since COVID started and, we've been quarantined in a way. We've probably talked to more family and friends from the past than ever before. And
Sure.
That's another benefit to having a tool that facilitates that type of relationship and networking for whatever purpose you may have.
That's great. So given their spirit, given the opportunity to reconnect and sort of just from a financial perspective and a giving perspective, do they give, I mean, you hear of like those that go on to major big time success professionally, somebody will make a $2 million donation or something to a building or to fund a coaching position or whatever it may be. I mean, is that typical that they're providing really high levels of giving versus general student population?
Yes. Yeah. So great question. And it's kind of feast or famine. The athletes that stay engaged feel like they're still part of the family and appreciated and still getting love, give back in extraordinary ways. And they are successful. That same competitive inner strength that allowed them to be a college athlete, it translates in the business world. And so there is a high success rate and ability to give back.
Yeah.
So that's the feast side of the equation. The feast side is a lot of athletes will tell you, if you did a survey in any scenario, I only hear from my athletic department when they want money. And they feel disenfranchised, and that I hear this all the time. I haven't heard from anybody since I took off my uniform. They don't care about me anymore. They don't care since I left campus. Those people are the famine because they have a kind of, hey, you don't care about me, I don't care about you. And there's a divisive animosity that starts to build when you feel like somebody doesn't appreciate you anymore, or that they used me, for a period of time. So for those athletes that are disengaged or disenfranchised, extremely low giving rate. But there's a trigger if there's an engagement and we see phenomenal results from our partner. Syracuse just got a gift from a former lacrosse player of $2.5 million. The individual, and we've got quotes from the individual, said, you finally put your money where your mouth is. It's great to finally engage with Syracuse athletics again in a meaningful way. And he wrote a check for $2.5 million, made a commitment. And he attributed that to the institution actually putting out a little effort. Because that's it's so rare, athletic athletes and athletic departments are very focused for 4 years. And then, without a concerted effort, the optics are that they don't care anymore. And so it's tough because it is feast and famine. And we have seen with our partners that the data shows if you engage with your former athletes, they give back in a very meaningful way. So we put a market value on an athlete of unengaged, somewhat engaged, or very engaged. Sure. It's very predictive what you can expect from a fundraising and revenue capacity from your former athletes based upon their engagement levels.
So as you're working with clients, it sounds like there's a bit of an aha from the student athlete side of things. Like, hey, you're finally paying attention to me. And it's not just paying attention to me because I have a checkbook. So you're finally paying attention to me. Are you seeing some aha moments? I mean, outside of the $2.5 million check, but some aha moments from your clients that are now engaging with former student athletes? Are they kind of doing wait, where have we been? Like, why haven't we been doing this?
Yeah, I didn't know it was this simple. Why didn't we do this earlier?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not picking on anybody. Everybody's doing a tremendous job, but like, we have a partner that just saw a 50% lift year over year last homecoming from the homecoming average the 5 years before, because they actually were communicating more efficiently and more clearly. So giving back can be event participation. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's an aha moment. If somebody hasn't heard from a coach in 5 or 10 years and they get a simple update that there's a 2-minute video of what's going on with the program, people miss that locker room talk. People miss feeling like they're being on the inside. So if there's any, that feel the love, all of a sudden it's like the dam opens up and it's like, I'm coming to reunions. I'm connecting with teammates. Yeah, my company can hire a former athlete. I'm going to post a job on their career page. And there's all these different things that happen, but, there's no sugarcoating it. It's a fundraising and revenue opportunity, because at the end of the day, that's one of the major KPIs.
But it can be, you can physically make that ask or directly make that ask 1 out of every 10 communications rather than 1 out of 1 communication. So, but that requires, I would guess, developing some content. Like, what are you going to say to somebody if you reach out?
Well, that's really easy. It's funny you bring that up, because there's a lot of content, no matter what organization or school you are. And we've been doing a lot of schools think, well, we put stuff on Twitter, we're good. We've seen the Pew Institute just put out a report that only 22% of adults in America are on Twitter. An athletic department.
It seems like it's pervasive everywhere, all the time.
Yeah, that's right. There's a brand awareness. Yeah, brand awareness is sky high. 22% of adults in America participate or are active on Twitter. And of those people, the number is like 1% that see a feed because it gets buried so quickly. So pretense is an athletic department has this content, they're putting it on Twitter, or a professional sports team. Hey, it's all good. We're putting it on Twitter. I got bad news for you. Only 22% of the people are on Twitter. And of those people, they're not seeing your feeds. So the content is not the problem.
Yeah.
Here's the other problem is college athletes, Team USA athletes, they were treated different while they were there. When they graduate, they're like, oh, go to our public facing website. Well, what do you mean? When I was in the bubble, not the Orlando bubble, when I was in the bubble, everything was given to me. I didn't
brought to me.
Look for it. Yeah, I was a VIP. Don't tell me I got to go figure out how to get tickets for the first time in my life. I've never used to that. So we also want to provide a home and a VIP experience through the software, because you didn't treat them normal when they were on campus, and that ship's already sailed. I'm sorry if former college athletes were a little spoiled. It is what it is. you can't just tell them, okay, that was how you did it then. This is how we're going to treat you now. And it's kind of fend for yourself. So yeah, there's free content though. That is not a problem. It's that, 20% on Twitter, 20% on Facebook, 20%
Sure.
on Instagram. What we do is provide a one-stop shopping hub so that everybody can find everything. And there's no assumptions being made that people saw that, reunion or, that ticket offer, that promotion or that coach's update or the
If they want to find it, it's easier to
yeah,
find.
the passing of a coach. One of my track coaches passed away recently, and I had to find out on Facebook, a couple of years ago because there wasn't, a home for athletes to communicate. So.
If you consider schools or properties that don't have your software right now, recognizing we all believe they should, but if they don't, are there some really basic things that they should be thinking about doing?
Yeah, I mean, now more than ever, that you've got to figure out a creative way to engage with your former athletes, because right now every athletic department in the country is facing a budget cut. So you're not going to get more state money. So how are you going to fill that void of that budget cut? Fundraising.
Yeah.
You're going to fundraise if you don't have a relationship. And I love it. I talk to development people all the time or athletic directions, like, we can only make so many hey calls. Hey, how's it going? Hey, what's going on? You got to provide something.
Hey calls. I like that.
Ship. And so one of the things that people need to do, however they do it, obviously we'd love for them to partner with us, but you have to figure out a way in your own world to engage with your audience, because now more than ever, how are you going to ask? And it's a virtual world. If you don't have digital engagement tools, you're really in trouble, but it's a dangerous trap when people rely on social media because you don't have any way to monitor that or track that in a specific manner. So what I would tell people all the time, if you're an administrator or you're a coach, take a 2-minute selfie video and figure out a way to get it out to your former athletes. You've got to have organic or authentic content and meaningful in this day and age, because people have to close this fundraising gap, and the way to do it is through donations.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to me, I would imagine there's a bit of a tweak that needs to take. I love how I bring my hand up and it disappears and then it shows up. All right. So anyway, but there's just a tweak to what they're actually doing right now, because when I think about communication and developing relationships on a campus level, I think, wow, they've got to be really good at that because they're recruiting all the time. So you want to get to know the recruits. You want to bring them in and show them something interesting. But then there's just like it stops when they get to campus, and then but it would seem to be just a tweak to be able to take that exact same message and push it forward. In fact, I would think the coaches, administrators would love that, because all of a sudden they get to talk to, no offense to anybody that maybe on it is a current student athlete, but you get to talk to adults now. You're not
right.
talking to a 17, 18-year-old. You're talking to somebody with maybe 10 years more than that, and you get to talk to people that have been through the system and know what's going on. So tweaking that message, it could be about training, it could be about health, it could be about campus, whatever it is, tweaking that, using almost the same thing, but tweaking that and pushing that to your alumni, it seems to be fairly easy to do, but just not thought of.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, the reason why we launched our software a few years ago is because there was such a huge void in the marketplace. People ask me all the time, well, who are your biggest competitors? Well, there's nobody really doing this. I mean, when you work with LSU and Clemson and Penn State and UCLA and Kansas, somebody would said, oh, we're already doing the exact same thing. Come look at our software. It's not like sports architecture where there's like 5 people doing the exact same thing. So it was a huge void in the marketplace that people would complain to us. Can you please help us figure out a way to aggregate everything in one location? Because what the old school method of letter winners clubs, for instance, we're going to do our annual golf tournament, somewhat organized. We're going to every once in a while do a newsletter. We don't know when the next one is. Be patient. We're going to do the occasional reunion. That's the old school letter winners club in the past. People, unfortunately, now have a higher appetite and expectation of wanting things quickly, consuming it when they want to consume it, and easy to find. So the old world letter winners clubs, especially, guys like us are aging out, and we got these, the younger generations coming in, their expectations are even higher. I don't want to have to fight and find and hunt and search for stuff, but the younger generation has even less patience for that.
So that actually leads to a question that was asked from the Webosphere. Does Athlete Network work exclusively with athletic departments, or are you also working with like alumni office and other fundraising arms of the university?
Yeah, every institution is a little bit different.
Everybody's special. We
You
all
can
know
kind of
this.
make some generalities though, and I
Yeah,
hate to do this, but like at a Power Five school, there's a crew of people inside the athletic department that are doing fundraising, they're doing academic support, they have a lot of different warm bodies. If you go to a D2 institution, they may outsource fundraising to development on campus. They may outsource letter winner engagement to the Alumni Association.
oh, right.
It's institutional development, things like that is fundraising. It's to answer your question, it's very common for me to work hand in hand with somebody in an alumni association, somebody in development at the institution level who may be a development officer assigned to athletics.
Sure.
At the end of the day, what happens, and it's unfortunate, is an athletic department say, oh, our alumni association takes care of engaging our former athletes. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that does not work. Because when the kids are on campus for 4 years, they're talking to a coach, they're talking to their people inside the athletics precinct, and it's a different language. You know it, I know it, everybody in the industry knows it. So it's not fair when they graduate to say, okay, now you're going to talk alumni association speak, because they don't understand the type of content, the verbiage, and it's like switching gears, because for 4 years, they're communicated with one way, and then the alumni association, they're doing great jobs. I worked for an alumni association. Mm-hmm. Dealing with athletes is a little bit niche.
Rifle versus shotgun.
School business, athletic department, school of engineering. It doesn't work that way.
Yep.
And so we do work with a lot of different people across campus at every level of an institution, because at the end of the day, we want to help kids get jobs. These just happen to be athletes. We want to do fundraising. We just want to take advantage of these former athletes who have the propensity to give if cultivated properly. So at the end of the day, we're trying to help everybody meet their goals. I don't think that there's that much silo mentality that if somebody wants to write a $2 million check, that they care, is it a former athlete or is it a former, engineering student? That they all have its goal at the end of the day they want to reach, and we want to help with the athletic side of the house.
Sure. Having worked on the alumni board of my master's, my MBA at Wake Forest, I understand that Wake Forest, my group, is looking to raise money for the business school, and they think the athletic department gets too much of it anyway. So but then I talk to my friends in the athletic department, they think just the other way around. So so certainly an opportunity to speak to a number of different places. But to your point, when you're speaking with former athletes, there's probably a different conversation or a different language, maybe not an entirely different language, but a different dialect that
sure
should be in place.
And on that point, our contact at Penn State has said if they're cultivating good relationships with former athletes, they've seen giving increase on the academic side as well. So there may be an athlete that's listening, I'll make it up, former golfer, former tennis player, football player, whatever. They're cultivating that relationship, and all of a sudden that person makes a gift for $1 million, and $250,000 of it goes to the School of Journalism. At Penn State, they've seen nurturing these relationships has helped on the academic side when it comes to giving as well.
Well, and point blank, the student athletes are still leaders, whether they're on campus or they've graduated. They're still leaders, and I imagine there would be a number of people that see that type of giving and say, oh, you know what, like maybe I can get back in the fold as well from a giving perspective.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the goal. Get unengaged people engaged and let nature take its course where it ends up.
Sure. So what are some of the analytics behind the ROI? So obviously there's some cost of the software versus what you're inclined to get back from increased engagement in former student athletes. What's that look? First of all, I guess probably just from an investment perspective, you've got a great number of stickers behind you. There are bumper stickers of your clients, but there are like 1,000 NCAA institutions out there. Is it just a something that some
Yeah,
people
so we have layered tiered pricing. So
Okay.
D3 school and an AI school, you're not paying the same as much as a group of five or a power five school. I would tell you that it's in the hundreds of dollars. Nobody is paying us right now over $10,000 a year, so it's very affordable. The ROI, what we're seeing is, ticket sales, merchandise sales, things that people are coming back, getting engaged. So there's a lot of ways to generate revenue. There's a lot of our partners have a challenge with athletes hiring athletes. So if you're at Rice, maybe you have an Owls hiring Owls program, and you just need a way to help people. So generating revenue from employers that want to hire athletes is another revenue generation idea. So, we're really interested in creating an ROI, but every school is a little bit different. What kind of value are you going to put on a mentor-mentee relationship, knowing it's going to provide fruit down the road, or a kid get a job? Yeah, it's easy if somebody writes a check for $500,000. It's a little harder to measure some of those other intangibles, but we know it's all part of the big picture. And so the ROI for a school is going to vary from here to there, but we have 10 different ways school can generate revenue while the donation process is being cultivated out and things like that. So yeah, I mean,
is that something typically
ROI.
Is that something typically Athlete Network gets involved in, to say, here's some campus, tell us what your goals are, and here's some things you are doing, or maybe here's some things you haven't thought of yet to help develop some ROI?
Yes, one of the big things we do is we have a community of our partners that they have a shared network to share ideas and best practices, that just for partners, and we have a monthly leadership call to share best practices and ideas and things like that. But on day one with all of our partnerships, we try to set a baseline, because we know we're going to raise the needle on fundraising. So on day one, what percentage of your athletes give back, or how many of your athletes give back? So we want to set a baseline, and then every 6, 12, 18 months marks, we're going to cross-check where our baseline was, where are we now, what engagement tools are working better than others, things like that. So yeah, we're pretty data-driven in analytics. It's hard to take the emotions out of it, but at the end of the day, we want to define success before we get started. So at the 12-month mark, the 36-month mark, we can say, all right, we've moved the needle significantly, for what may have been a $5,000 annual investment.
So that kind of tells me that, while focused right now, given the wall behind you, very much in the collegiate space, this could play at any level of sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the NFL, professional sports teams are kind of the next thing on my personal radar, because here's the deal. I have a conversation with a former Chiefs player. Yeah, we're having a golf tournament. They want us to do some job shadowing, and not everything's going to be able to provided by the NFLPA at a national level. There's things that are just for the Chiefs players. Hey, we want to do job shadowing the off season, or we're doing a Hall of Fame Ring of Honor for us, Ring of Honor ceremony. We need to stay in touch with those people and keep them engaged. So that's the beauty of it, is it's a software that we license, and then we brand it, and everybody's using it and leveraging it a little bit different. So for a professional sports team, maybe it's MLB. How are we staying engaged with single A, double A, triple A? And that guy that blows out his shoulder, you still want to be a part of the family for the rest of his life. So you want, how are we doing that?
Well, you mentioned earlier, it was kind of like the day they take their jersey off. But there are a lot of people who didn't want to take the jersey off. They did, but keep me involved. Because they're still talking about it to this day, how they played for, or played with, or played against. So utilize that.
It's a challenge, because like tickets, we just use the low-hanging fruit that everybody talks about. Hey, I played single A, double A, and then I hurt my shoulder. Or I was on the track team, at Marquette for a couple of years, and then I wasn't. Well, how do I get my ticket? How do I get free tickets in the future? Or how do I buy, even trivial thing like tickets is a nightmare.
They've never had to deal with it before.
Somebody at every school or team that has inbound phone calls from people wanting free tickets, and it's like, all right, so they offer services, but they're very decentralized, which becomes frustrating, which becomes where that grind starts to, that animosity starts to build of they don't care.
Right.
I'll tell you, we have a lot of conversations about tickets. And I don't care if it's, going to the Olympics, going to a sporting event, going to a collegiate event. where are my free tickets? I mean, that all of a sudden becomes the burr under the saddle of somebody. It's like, I can't believe they're making me pay for my tickets. Well, maybe there's free tickets. You just don't know how to sign up for them, or you don't have a place to ask, or, you know, it's funny. I mean, that is a micro level discussion, but applies at the macro level of even something as trivial as tickets burns bridges, because people don't want to pay for tickets. They're not used to paying for tickets. And I don't care what hat you wear, what sport you played at what level. Tickets are demise of a lot of relationships, and it's ridiculous to laugh at a group like this, but you know, that's one of the many problems that we want to help people solve.
But I would imagine though that the properties you're working with, just to be able to communicate and centralize some of that, just reduces their workload enormously.
Oh yeah,
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's
need tickets, click here. Oh, okay.
I think Leslie at the USOC told us after we partnered, she eliminated about 53 different Excel spreadsheets.
Holy cow. Okay, well, there's an ROI right there.
It's so decentralized. Oh, I got to keep track if somebody wants to hire somebody. I got to keep a spreadsheet of athletes. I got to keep a spreadsheet of accountants and lawyers, and so we eliminate all that with our data and the analytics. It's all automated. So yeah, I mean,
that's fantastic.
It is a cost-saving measure, absolutely.
So that's kind of the athletic department. On the coaching side, do coaches realize, understand the value of alumni relationships outside of recruiting?
Well, ask me 6 months ago. I mean, 300 sports sadly have been eliminated in the country right now. So there's schools that have scrambled where all of a sudden coaches didn't used to be fundraisers. In some cases, they're doing it to save their sport and save their job. So it's a really tough question, and it does hit close to home here. We're all former college athletes. I can't imagine if the track team would, be cast aside. It would be heartbreaking. So the coaches have become more of a fundraiser. We just got a deal done with Northwest Missouri State at the D2 level because the football coaches said, we didn't have a spring game. We didn't have a reunion. We didn't have anybody here. How can I digitally engage? I need a tool. So a lot of coaches are a little bit on the panic side about how they're engaging with former athletes. If you're a new coach, if you've hired new coaching staff, if you're coming back, from a coaching, you come back to your alma mater and all of a sudden, how do I communicate with everybody? So there's that piece of it. And then the tool, mom and dad get pickier and pickier when they're doing recruiting visits, and they're going to bust your hump. Maybe dad's worried about PT, but the mom's grounded in what's life after sports. Coaches don't always answer that question really well. They appear to be the optics or lip service. Now they can say, oh, we want to show you mentoring jobs, internships, all this services, and you're part of the family for life. So it is a recruiting tool. Absolutely. Coaches need something tangible to keep parents pacified. It's recruiting's tough, especially now when you can't go into somebody's home and they can't come to campus. You got to have something to show somebody.
Absolutely. And I imagine they could tap a number of their alumni network to be paying attention to the local scene, and look, there's somebody on our radar and we need somebody to pay attention because we can't get there right now. It's just
and even this sending out compliance documents. Mm-hmm. Hey, we need your help, but buying a car's out, taking
right.
So even having an efficient manner of reminding people about compliance and things like that, it's just a communication tool. I don't care if it's recruiting, fundraising, or a coach saying, hey, don't forget, here are the do's and don'ts. As a track athlete at KU, I think either quarterly or semi-annual, I get a regular compliance letter from somebody in an email reminding me what the do's and don'ts are. So,
yes, sure.
I mean, any way to communicate more efficiently and have everything, coaches definitely need support.
And going back to last week's topic, which was NIL and student athlete compensation, that's just going to become more and more and more important, those types of communications. And certainly being able to funnel the communications through a centralized location, I would think you guys would be fairly well positioned on a campus perspective to assist the athletic department with those things.
Yeah, I want COVID to go away as quickly as anybody, but we've seen a lot of inbound interest in the last 3 months with people in a panic about how quickly can we partner, how quickly can we ramp up, because we need tools.
Sure.
Whether it's NIL coming down the pike or whatever the case may be, there is a little bit of a panic in the sports world right now about digitally connecting. Everybody's going to ticketless. I mean, you know, people may have been fighting that, but now it's like everybody's going ticketless.
Let's go.
There's all these different niches of like, hey, we used to think that was a nice to have, now it's a must have because of what's going on. And we don't know what it's going to be like in 6 months, but there's going to be some things that are permanent. I mean, the world tickets is gone. I mean, that's never coming back. I mean, those are some of the things that you're going to see. Maybe they threw a little gas on the fire with COVID, but, you know, and digitally engaging, you know, in some capacity is not going to be a thing of the past. People are going to expect it going forward.
Well, I'm looking at the clock, so and we're up on our time. But let me go back to something you just mentioned, and I'll ask the question, just like some of the people that are panicking are. What does the timeline look like? You know, so if they come to you and say, "Hey, we are interested. We want to engage. We need that software." And is it Unite? Is that the software?
Yeah.
So then, you know, what does that look like? What does it?
We move pretty quick because
the good news is software, right?
Yeah, that's right. And so we're not web developers. It's a platform, it's a template, and we upload content and we get partners up and running. If there's a sense of urgency, which everybody wants it yesterday, we can launch a network in 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Well, cool. I mean, that's great. So an enormous thank you to you, Brett. It's been great to have you on with us and sharing the questions. And sharing the answers. So let me make sure that people know that they can get to this again. It's going to be shared. So if you want to share it, in the next 24 hours, a note will come out with a link to the recorded session. So you can get this. And I think it requires you, even if you've already registered for the webinar, that you've got to register to get the recording, but that's easy. So that's coming out in the next 24 hours. But beyond that, if anybody's interested in finding this or another of the recorded sessions from snodgrasspartners.com, right off of the homepage, there's a link to the webinars, and it's easy to find, and you get all those different things. So we'll have this one up in the next 24 hours. And if you do have questions, let me screen share again. If there are questions that y'all may have that you want to share with either me through SMU or, let's see here. Here we go. Me at SMU or Snodgrass Partners and their teammates, or directly with Brett. Here's the information to do that. You can certainly do so. I know I will not speak out of turn for Brett in saying, if you'd like to have a conversation, be more than welcome to do so. And so his email is here as well. If you just want to check out Athlete Network and their scope of services, their website is here as well. So thank you for that. I would like to mention that next week is our last session, or last webinar planned right now anyways. I don't know, who knows, maybe we come back and do more. But we'll be hearing from Darren Dupriest at Screening. He'll be talking about screening for success. He works for Validity Screening Solutions. And that's about understanding it goes back to what Schoolhouse Rock, right? Like knowledge is power. Whether you're recruiting student athletes or new employees or anything else, understanding what the background looks like is important. And he's going to talk about some issues that are growing within that world and some opportunities that are growing with that world. It is a little bit different now than it was when Darren said he wanted to join us. So come in and join us for that next week. Log in and re-register for that. But again, here is our contact information if you do have any questions or comments in the meantime. But Brett, one more big thank you to you. Thank you for joining us. And I'll look forward to chatting with you again soon, I hope.
Yeah, thanks for obliging me on the format. I'm more of a Q&A guy than a PowerPoint, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that. So
it's kind of fun. I enjoyed it.
For having me, and definitely look forward to staying in touch. We appreciate what you guys are doing.
Outstanding. Well, everybody, I want to say thank you, and until next week. And I'll be joining you from a really extended campus next week, as I've got to get on a big silver bird, and I'll be in Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. So assuming I don't know, I guess assuming it's raining and I'm not on a golf course, I'll show up and do the webinar, but I'll show up on Tuesday. So I will have a different background maybe, but looking forward to seeing everybody then. Until then, stay safe and be well. Thanks, everybody.